Picture this, a warm June evening in Denver, the Rockies glowing pink under a fading sunset, and me, standing in a rooftop ballroom at the Brown Palace Hotel, thinking I was the luckiest woman alive. My engagement party was perfect, twinkling lights, a jazz trio playing softly, and my fiancé, Ryan, smiling at me like I was the only person in the room. But in one brutal moment, my sister Vanessa turned my dream night into a nightmare that exposed a secret so dark it shattered our family. I'm Grace, 30 years old, a high school art teacher who'd spent years building a quiet life in Capitol Hill. Ryan, a soft-spoken architect, was my safe harbor. We met 4 years ago at a Lodo art gallery, bonding over a shared love of abstract paintings and bad puns. He proposed on a snowy hike in Rocky Mountain National Park, his glasses fogging up as he fumbled with the ring. I said yes before he could finish, my heart bursting. Our engagement party was meant to be a celebration of us, surrounded by family and friends. Instead, it became the stage for Vanessa's betrayal. Vanessa, my older sister by 3 years, was always the golden child. Stunning, charismatic, a marketing exec who commanded every room. Growing up in Boulder, I idolized her. She was the one who taught me to ride a bike, who snuck me into concerts when I was too young. But there was another side to her, a need to be the center of attention, to control the narrative. Mom called it confidence. I called it narcissism, though I never said it out loud. When I got engaged, Vanessa seemed thrilled. She insisted on planning the party, choosing the venue, the menu, even my dress. A shimmering gold gown I'd never have picked but wore to make her happy. "This is your night, Gracie," she said, hugging me at a coffee shop in Reno. "I'm gonna make it epic." I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? She was my sister. The night started like a dream. The ballroom was draped in fairy lights, with tables adorned with wildflowers from a local farm. Ryan's parents, warm and down-to-earth, drove in from Fort Collins, toasting us with stories of Ryan's childhood Lego obsession. My dad, a retired firefighter, teared up when he saw me in my dress. My mom, ever the perfectionist, fussed over the table settings but beamed with pride. Even our cat, Picasso, was at home with a sitter, probably knocking over my paintbrushes. Then Vanessa took the microphone. I was leaning against Ryan, his hand warm on my back, when Vanessa stepped into the spotlight. She looked like a movie star in a crimson dress, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders. "Here comes trouble," I whispered to Ryan, expecting her usual witty charm. "Everyone," she began, her voice smooth as velvet, "and Grace is my little sister, and nobody deserves love more. But let's talk about Ryan." The crowd chuckled, anticipating a playful roast, but her smile had an edge, like a blade catching the light. "Ryan's perfect, right? The architect with the dreamy eyes. But Grace, she's always had a knack for picking guys who don't stick around. Remember her high school boyfriend, Tyler? The one who ghosted her after prom? Or Ben, who borrowed her savings for his startup and then bailed?" The room went still. My heart plummeted. Tyler and Ben were wounds I'd shared with Vanessa in tear-soaked late-night talks. Why was she dragging them up now in front of everyone? "And let's not forget her college fling, Max," she continued, her voice dripping with mock pity. "He cheated on her with half the sorority. So Ryan, I hope you're different. Because Grace can't handle another guy who's less than honest." The words hit like a slap. Ryan's hands stiffened, his jaw tight. Guests shifted in their seats, their smiles frozen. My dad's face turned to stone, his fork clattering against his plate. My mom stared at Vanessa, her mouth open. I felt like I was drowning, humiliation burning my cheeks. This wasn't a roast, it was a public execution. "Vanessa," I said, forcing a shaky laugh, "and maybe stick to the happy stuff." She waved me off, her eyes glinting with something dark. "Oh, Gracie, relax. I'm just looking out for you. Someone's got to make sure Ryan's not hiding any secrets, right?" The silence was suffocating. I wanted to scream, to yank the microphone from her hands, to disappear. But before I could move, Ryan's dad, Tom, stood up, his chair scraping loudly. He was a burly man, a former contractor, with a voice that could silence a construction site. "And then sincerely, that's enough. And that's enough," he said, his tone low but lethal. "Vanessa, you're done. Mine was just—" "And sit down," Tom said, striding toward the microphone. The crowd parted, every eye on him. I looked at Ryan, expecting him to stop his dad, but he was staring at the floor, his face pale as a ghost. What happened next was a plot twist that turned my world upside down. Tom took the microphone, his hands steady despite the fire in his eyes. "See, I didn't want to do this," he said, glancing at Ryan. "I told you to handle it, son. But I'm not letting this girl tear Grace apart." Ryan stepped forward, his voice cracking. "And Dad, please, don't." Tom ignored him, turning to the crowd. "Vanessa's speech wasn't just cruel, it was a lie, and I'm sick of her lies." Vanessa's champagne glass trembled in her hand, her face ashen. "8 months ago," Tom said, "Vanessa showed up at our house in Fort Collins. Ryan was visiting for the weekend. She was drunk, crying, begging him not to marry Grace. She said Grace was unhinged, that she'd ruin his life. She claimed Grace had been secretly meeting her ex, Ben, planning to leave Ryan. I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth. Ben? I hadn't seen him in years. The accusation was so absurd it felt like a fever dream. Ryan told her to stop, Tom continued. He showed us the texts she sent him after, dozens of them, apologizing, pleading with him to keep it quiet, but she didn't stop. She called him again, late at night, saying she was in love with him. That she'd always loved him, that she was the one he should be with. The world spun. Vanessa? In love with Ryan? My sister, the one who'd planned my party, who'd held me when Mom got sick, who'd promised to be my maid of honor. She'd been plotting to steal my fiancé. I turned to Vanessa, waiting for her to deny it, to laugh it off as a misunderstanding. But she just stood there, her eyes wide, her lips quivering. The truth was carved into her face. "Ron didn't tell Grace," Tom said, his voice softening as he looked at me. "But I couldn't let Vanessa humiliate you in front of everyone. Grace, you're our daughter now. And we don't let liars hurt our family." The room exploded in whispers. My dad stood, his fists clenched, glaring at Vanessa. My mom covered her face, shaking her head. Ryan's mom, Ellen, reached for my hand, her eyes wet. I felt Ryan's arm around me, but it was limp, like he was a stranger. Vanessa dropped her glass, the champagne pooling on the floor. She bolted for the stairs, her heels echoing like gunshots. My mom started to follow, but I grabbed her arm. "Let her go," I said, my voice barely a whisper. The party limped on, guests offering strained smiles and half-hearted toasts. Ryan pulled me into a quiet corner, his face crumpled. "Grace, I'm so sorry, I should have told you. I thought I was saving you from pain." "Saving me?" My voice shook with rage. "You let her lie about me for months. You let her plan our party, Ryan. How could you keep this from me?" He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes red. "She said it was a mistake. She was drunk, sobbing, begging me not to tell you. I didn't think she'd do this." "So didn't think," I snapped, tears spilling over. "Ah, you let her manipulate you. You let her gaslight me into thinking I was the problem." He reached for me, but I stepped back. "I need space," I said, walking away. I found my dad on the balcony staring at the city lights. "You okay, Gracie?" he asked, his voice rough. "No," I said, my throat tight, "but I will be." He pulled me into a hug, his flannel shirt smelling of sawdust and home. "That girl's no sister of yours, not anymore." I wanted to believe it was that simple, but Vanessa wasn't just a villain. She was my history, my childhood, my blood. Cutting her out felt like tearing out a piece of my heart, even if it was rotting. My family fractured. My dad was livid, calling Vanessa a selfish brat who'd sell her own sister for a spotlight. But my mom, always the peacemaker, tried to mediate. "She's your sister, Grace," she said over tea at our house in Wash Park. "She made a mistake. She's hurting. You can't throw away family." "Say mistake?" I laughed, bitter. "She tried to steal my fiancé, Mom. She lied about me to his family. She's been in love with him for months." My mom sighed, stirring her tea. "She's always been intense. Talk to her. You'll regret cutting her out." "I'm jealous?" I snapped. I told her if she kept defending her, she could skip the wedding. It was cruel, but I was exhausted by her codependency, her need to keep the family together at my expense. My dad backed me, but the rift with my mom cut deep. She didn't speak to me for 2 weeks, her silence a wound I hadn't expected. I couldn't let Vanessa's betrayal define me. I needed to reclaim my story, not with a screaming match, but with something smarter. Something that would expose her without sinking to her level. I started therapy with Dr. Elena, a no-nonsense woman who called Vanessa's behavior textbook narcissism. She helped me see how I'd fallen into learned helplessness, always deferring to Vanessa to avoid conflict. "I'm not her shadow, Grace," Elena said. "Share the light, act like it." I reached out to my cousin Mia, who'd never trusted Vanessa's perfect persona. "She's always been a drama queen," Mia said over beers at a brewery in Golden. "Remember when she crashed your art show in college, making it about her promotion? Same vibe." Mia's words sparked a plan. Vanessa thrived on being the victim or the hero. If I could strip that away, she'd unravel herself. I shared the truth with our mutual friends, not to gossip but to set the record straight. I showed them Vanessa's texts to Ryan, calmly explaining her lies. Most were horrified, apologizing for not seeing her true colors. A few defended her, calling me petty. I let them go. Boundary formation, Elena called it, choosing who deserved my energy. Then came the wedding. Vanessa was still listed as maid of honor, but that was about to change. I called her, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. "You're not invited," I said. "Not to the wedding, not to my life. You crossed a line and I'm done." She sobbed, her voice cracking. "And Gracie, please, I was drunk. I didn't mean it. You're my sister. You tried to destroy me, and I'm not your pawn anymore." She hung up, still crying. I felt a flicker of guilt, but it was drowned out by freedom. For the first time, I was standing tall. 2 weeks before the wedding, I got an email from Ryan's sister, Claire, who'd flown in from San Francisco. "Brace yourself," she wrote, attaching a screenshot of a public Instagram post from Vanessa. It was a rambling, tear-streaked video, posted to her 10,000 followers. In it, she accused me of stealing Ryan, claiming I'd always been jealous of her success. She shared private texts from years ago, vulnerable messages where I'd confessed my fears about teaching, about losing Mom to cancer. She twisted them to make me look unstable, manipulative, even suicidal. But the real bombshell? She'd tagged Ryan's firm, his clients, and my school district, spinning a narrative that we were toxic and unfit for our careers. She'd been so consumed by her need to destroy me that she'd exposed her own obsession to the world. Claire called me, laughing bitterly. "And she's imploded, Grace. Her boss saw the post and suspended her. Half her followers are calling her out. She's a mess." I didn't laugh. I didn't cheer. But I felt a quiet triumph. Vanessa's narcissism had been her undoing. She'd lit the match, and her own lies had burned her down. We married on a crisp autumn morning at a lodge in Estes Park, the mountains framing us like a painting. My dad walked me down the aisle, his eyes shining. Mia stepped in as maid of honor, her speech a heartfelt ode to resilience that left us in tears. My mom showed up, but we kept our distance, her apology still a work in progress. Ryan and I danced under a canopy of stars, promising to be honest even when it hurts. He'd earned my trust back through months of therapy, proving he was more than his mistakes. As we swayed to Norah Jones, I felt whole, not because of him, but because I'd chosen myself. 2 years later, I'm a different Grace. Ryan and I bought a bungalow in 5 Points, where we're learning to cook and bicker over whose turn it is to clean Picasso's litter box. I started a podcast, Breaking Free, sharing stories of surviving toxic relationships. It's small, but it's growing, a way to turn pain into purpose. Vanessa moved to Phoenix, chasing a fresh start. I heard she's in therapy, but I don't know if it's true. I don't wish her harm, but I don't need her in my life. Her absence is peace. My mom and I are healing, one honest conversation at a time. She admitted she'd enabled Vanessa's behavior, afraid of losing her. It's not perfect, but it's progress. Some mornings I drive to a lookout in Rocky Mountain National Park, watching the sunrise paint the peaks gold. I think of the girl I was, the one who shrank to fit Vanessa's shadow, who thought family meant swallowing pain. She deserved better. I carry her now not as a weight but as a spark. She's the reason I'm here, painting, teaching, loving, living. And that's my revenge, not Vanessa's fall, but my rise. The weeks after the engagement party were a hurricane of emotions. Vanessa's texts flooded my phone. apologies dripping with desperation, excuses cloaked in tears. Gracie, I was drunk. I didn't mean it. Each message was a calculated attempt to gaslight me, to make me question my pain. I stared at them, my thumb hovering over the reply button, but I didn't respond. Her words were a trap, and I was done falling. Ryan was a shadow of himself, guilt eating him alive. He'd sleep on the couch in our Capitol Hill apartment, leaving me the bed but not the peace I needed. One night he showed me Vanessa's texts to him, pages of delusion, claiming she saw him first, that I was too broken for him. The words cut deep, not because I believed them, but because he'd hidden them for months. Why, Ryan? I asked, my voice raw. Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me? He buried his face in his hands. I thought I was protecting you. I thought if I ignored her, she'd stop. I was wrong, Grace. I was so wrong. His tears didn't soften me. Trust was a bridge we'd have to rebuild, plank by painful plank. I couldn't let Vanessa's betrayal define me. I needed to take back my power, not with a public showdown, but with something sharper, quieter. I started therapy with Dr. Elena, a fierce Latina who saw through Vanessa's facade. She's a narcissist, Elena said, her voice calm but firm. She thrives on control, on being the star. You've been in her shadow too long, Grace. Step into the light. Elena helped me recognize my learned helplessness, how I'd shrunk to avoid Vanessa's wrath, always putting her feelings first. But boundaries aren't walls, she said. They're doors you choose to open. I confided in Mia, my cousin, who'd always seen Vanessa's true colors. She's a drama factory, Mia said over drinks at a brewery in 5 Points. I remember when she stole your solo at the school play? She's been stealing your shine forever. Mia's words ignited a plan. Vanessa lived for attention, whether as victim or savior. If I could let her expose herself, she'd unravel without me lifting a finger. I started small, sharing the truth with our mutual friends. I showed them Vanessa's texts to Ryan, calmly laying out her lies. Most were shocked, apologizing for enabling her. A few, blinded by her charm, accused me of overreacting. I let them go. Boundary formation was my mantra, choosing who deserved my trust. Then came the wedding planning. Vanessa was still listed as maid of honor, a role she didn't deserve. I called her, my voice steady as steel. You're not invited, I said. Not to my wedding, not to my life, but you've crossed a line and I'm done. She wept, her voice breaking. Gracie, please. I'm sorry, I was drunk. I love you. You don't love me, I said. You love being the star, and I'm not your supporting act. She hung up, her sobs echoing. I felt a twinge of guilt, but it was drowned out by relief. I'd finally set a boundary and it felt like freedom. 10 days before the wedding, Ryan's sister Claire called me, her voice tense. And you need to see this, she said, forwarding a link to a public Google Drive folder titled, "They're Real Grace." It was Vanessa's doing, a digital dagger. The folder contained a video montage, posted to her 15,000 Instagram followers, accusing me of stealing Ryan, claiming I'd always hated her success. She included a doctored emails, private journal entries from college I'd shared with her, and even a forged therapy note claiming I was borderline. She'd twisted my vulnerabilities into weapons, painting me as a manipulative, jealous sister. But the fatal mistake? She'd shared the folder with Ryan's firm, my school principal, her and her marketing agency, tagging clients and coworkers. Her obsession with destroying me had blinded her to her own recklessness. Claire laughed, shaking her head. She's finished, Grace. Her agency fired her. Her followers are tearing her apart. She's a walking disaster. I didn't laugh or cheer, but I felt a quiet victory. Vanessa's narcissism had been her own undoing. She'd built a house of lies and her own hands had torched it. We married on a foggy autumn day at a cozy lodge in Estes Park, the Rockies standing guard around over us. My dad walked me down the aisle, whispering to me, "Oh, my warrior kid." Mia, my sister-in-law, was maid of honor, her speech a love letter to resilience, that left us laughing and crying. My mom came, but we kept our distance. Her apology was still a work in progress, her eyes heavy with regret. Ryan and I danced to Landslide, promising to be raw, honest, even when it's messy. He'd earned my trust back through grueling therapy, proving he was more than his silence. As we moved under the stars, I felt whole, not because of him, but because I'd chosen myself. 3 years later, I'm a new Grace. Ryan and I moved into a fixer-upper in Highlands, where we're mastering drywall and cursing over whose turn it is to feed Picasso. I launched a podcast, Unraveled Lies, sharing stories of surviving toxic families and friendships. It's niche but growing, a beacon for others navigating betrayal's aftermath. Vanessa moved to Austin chasing a clean slate. Rumors say she's in therapy, but I don't know if it's true. I don't wish her ill, but I don't need her in my orbit. Her absence is a gift, a reminder I'm allowed to choose my own family. My mom and I are mending, one honest coffee date at a time. She admitted she'd enabled Vanessa's ego, afraid of losing her star. It's messy, but it's real. Some mornings I hike to a ridge in Rocky Mountain National Park, watching the dawn light spill over the peaks. I think of the girl I was, the one who dimmed to fit Vanessa's glow, who thought family meant swallowing pain. She deserved better. I carry her now, not as a scar, but as a flame. She's why I'm here, painting, teaching, loving, thriving. And that's my revenge, not Vanessa's ruin, but my own radiant rise.